Today I am coming on with a little authentic expression, a moment of truth, if you will. This is coming from the genetic expression of Gene Key 4, which is the shadow of intolerance, the gift of acceptance, and the siddhi or the divine expression of understanding. And this is actually one that is in my chart. This is in my attractor field with a line 6, which is about disappointment and innocence. So it's my dharma. And so today I decided to share a little bit about my journey with this particular gene, because line 6 feels like it's about sharing the experience from a place that's transmuted the intolerance into the understanding. So they say that line 6 can be like sort of wild cards. And I think it's true because we never really know what we're going to do with this information once we understand it. So today, my guides say, we're going to share it. We're going to share it with trusted community. And so that's what we're doing. And so this is something that's new that we don't always see people share authentic, vulnerable stories. So a couple experiences in my life have come up to be shared. And I'm sharing this at 41 years old as someone that's done a lot of self-development to process a lot of these things that held a lot of charge for a long time. And so I just want to safe-port this call, this transmission, that it may be activating for some, it may be triggering for some, and invitation in these moments is to tune into ourselves and check in. What is being triggered here? Because this is the catalyst for change. So if we've hit up against something, maybe an emotional pain or wound of some kind, this is our opportunity to unwind the wound, because we're going to be met with unconditional love, because here in this space, I'm infusing the space with pure love and non-judgment, agape love. So when I was growing up, I had an experience of being a teenager, going to a slumber party with my friends, 16 years old, and I get to the slumber party and it's a party. And I wasn't expecting that it was going to be a party, and I didn't expect that their parents weren't going to be home, and I didn't expect these older boys were going to show up, and I didn't expect that there was going to be drugs and alcohol, but there was. And I was a 16-year-old straight edge kid, but I like to hang out with the party animals. I wanted to belong. I wanted to feel in community. And so this relationship with my environment sometimes was compromising. Sometimes I put myself into places that I probably didn't need to be in, but come back in with this place of understanding that this is why we do this. We learn things. My curriculum chose to learn things at an earlier age, especially in childhood and early development. So from that night, I was drugged and I was sexually abused. And it was extremely confusing to me because I was drugged. I had never had drugs in my system ever. Somebody had put something into my drink and it ended up being Valium and barbiturates and a cocktail medley of things. And after the abuse, I went into hysteria. I was uncontrollably laughing and followed into uncontrollable hysterical crying. Didn't want to exist anymore. And I didn't have the language to express to my friends what happened. There was a part of me that was activated and aroused by what happened. So for me, it didn't feel like abuse in the moment. Although I was 16, there was a 24-year-old guy that I did not consent to have physical intimacy with, and we did. And after the hysteria, my friends got scared because I was now suicidal and expressing suicidal ideation for like, get me out of my body, get me out of here. The guys left. My parents ended up having to come. Oh boy, I was now an hour and a half from where we lived in another state. So they had to drive up and come and get me, and they immediately brought me to the hospital. They brought me to the hospital and they had me drug tested. And even though They wanted to believe that their sweet little princess had never done anything bad, could never possibly do anything bad. Here was proof that there was something in my body, and the doctors were telling them, yeah, she has tested positive for this, that, and the other. They chose not to do a rape kit at the time, which was fine, and we went back into the car for the 1.5-hour drive home after this hospital visit, and it was complete silence. Both my parents were driving, eyes on the road. I'm in the back seat, got this hospital band on me. There are drugs in my system. I've just had this very adult experience that was new for me. I'd never had experiences like this before. And you could hear a pin drop. Nobody said anything. I went on to believe that I deserved this, that what happened to me was just like, this is what it is to grow up. This is what it is to be around older boys. And my parents had stayed in denial that there were drugs in my system. So even though they had this medical record that could show them, they were like, not my kid, not my kid. My kid doesn't do that. And so that denial was embedded into me as my denial of what had happened. Years go by. And now it's like 2020. My parents are in different places now. My father has passed on. He took his life in 2015. And I'm visiting with my mother. And I've started this shadow work journey. And I've expressed to my mom that I want to go through my shadows. And I want to learn. And I want to add consciousness to around it. So I bring up that instance. I say, hey, Mom, what was going on there? Why did nobody meet me with any empathy? Why could nobody talk about what happened? I sat around getting the silent treatment for about 3 weeks by my parents. I just grounded myself. I thought I was grounded, and that's what was happening, and nobody was going to talk to me, and I just considered myself in trouble for a long time. So when I brought this up to my mom years later, so many years later, she had the exact same response, was we don't talk about that day. That gets swept under the rug. And there it was again. There was that crisis point, that moment. And from that moment, I recognized something. I understood something. Actually, it was longer that really integrated. But what I learned and have unraveled through my shadow work journey is that my parents both went through horrible childhoods that involved sexual abuse, either from themselves or for others around them. Sexual abuse was not safe for them to talk about. It certainly wasn't safe to deal with their child because they didn't have the resources and they didn't have the tools for it. So their lack of safety became my lack of safety. And so what I could very easily now learn about myself as an adult was that it was part of my curriculum to learn how to give myself empathy and compassion and to nurture myself even when nobody else was going to do it for me. I've now had other situations that have arisen, and one of them that's come up around this particular gene coming up again has been an instance in my marriage. There was an instance in my marriage where my partner was very abusive, and he would drive really erratically sometimes. If he got heated and angry in the car, he could be driving 1,000,000 miles an hour. I would be in shotgun in this experience. Sometimes I'd be on the back of his motorcycle when he would have these outbursts and he'd go 1,000,000 miles an hour. It was extremely unsettling to my nervous system, put me into a place of fight or flight. And there were a lot of instances that my partner put me in fight or flight. Well, this past week, this couple of days ago, here in this genetic frequency, I'm invited into a place of forgiveness because a friend of my partner's sends a mugshot, puts a mugshot on Instagram. Now, I've been divorced for many years, but I have seen the way that my curriculum has projected my ex into the field, and sometimes it's been through the embodiment of this particular individual. And so this particular individual was car racing on the road, gets pulled over, and now decides that he's gonna post his mugshot. And I know he's wearing that scarlet letter, and I know he's been gifted with the experience of forgiveness. He is now allowing me to tap into that field. And as I was tapping into that field with him, his mugshot on display, sharing the admission of guilt around drag racing and not being safe on the road, I felt myself astral projecting through time and space back into the embodiment of my ex-husband. And I could feel myself having forgiveness for him, for what he put me through all those years ago. And I felt the gratitude for my partner's friend, who's now bringing this into our field right now and saying, I did a bad thing. And he said, calm people do not drive like this. And blessed be that I'm here and that I can tell my story and I can learn from this and I can change my behavior around this. So his own admission of his guilt around this thing was swooping in to give me the ability to tolerate something that I used to have intolerance around and come to a place of mutual acceptance, understanding, and from that field, there was a forgiveness that was born. So from this forgiveness, I got to forgive the aspects of me that chose that partner to be in that unsafe car. I got to forgive my partner for putting me in that situation that he was unsafe for me. And I got to forgive my friend in the community for now wearing this scarlet letter in this moment to say, I'm going to come back around with this story so that we can have an alchemical transmutation around how we've acknowledged this story. When I think of my ex-husband now, there's been other instances too. I can embody a place of total forgiveness. This is an experience that my father gave me as well, and this one might be the most tender one to come back around to. There's been so many relationships in my life that I thought were gonna last forever, and yet here we are. And so when I lost my father to suicide in 2015, this was such a colossal ending of my life at that point. A point A and a point B that completely went off into different directions. My dad and I had lost our job on the same day. So we got dealt by the universe a similar hand. And my dad said, I'm out of here. And I said, I'm in. I'm all the way in. I'm gonna lean so deeply into this that there's not a shred of intolerance around what my father's path was, what he chose. And so now it's been 9 years since this happened. And in 9 years, I've had a complete 180 from living from the outside in to living from the inside out. As I've done this, I've had multiple conversations, engagements, miraculous experiences of connecting with my dad throughout time and space. This past year, I recognize that my dad is in everlasting peace, that he made the choice to ascend, and I never want to take that away from someone. And so this past fall, when I became pregnant and my body was giving me all kinds of data that said, this soul in here doesn't want to manifest into a human body. It does not want to be bound by time and space, but it very much wants you to know it is here. It is alive and well in its own dimension and time and space. And so this potential being within me made the sacred contact just like my dad did, that said, I do not want to be bound by time and space, but I want you to know that I am with you always. This past solstice, when that potential life may have manifested into a human body but chose not to, I was gifted with this solar return, this solstice, this literal rebirth, this divine connection with this intelligence that is far beyond this human body in this finite time and space. And from releasing this child, I've been reconnected with this being, this limitless possibility in a whole myriad of ways. And so what was once my greatest challenge is still manifesting into my greatest gift. And there is not a day that goes by that I am not receiving data from that beloved that reminds me that they're always with me, they're always loving me, protecting me, and supporting me. And this was the soul contract, even though it goes beyond my intellectual understanding. I have now embodied understanding and forgiveness. Forgiveness for my father's decision, forgiveness for this soul's decision not to want to manifest into the human body, forgiveness for myself, for everything I had to go through in my body and in my neural programming to release the stories about what motherhood should be and how it should manifest. And now in this place of pure, Siddhic, divine love, this frequency of forgiveness, I'm not only connected with my dad here, but I'm connected with my child. I'm connected with all the beloveds in all the ways that they have anthropomorphized throughout my life and in all my concurrent lives. So I share this today, reminding us all that no matter what it is we're going through, when we can change our perspective and when we can give ourselves the time and the patience to go through the journey, what comes through on the other side is so divine. It's literally beyond words. It's literally beyond what I could put into a human body and say, here, look at this. They'll speak to you and tell you everything. It's so beyond. So much of this life has been around the things that we can see and we can touch. But the invitation this week, as we are navigating forgiveness on a collective level, is the invitation to be with our breath and all of the things that we can't see or touch, but that we know are here. May we learn to be the forgiveness filter. May we learn to have tolerance by just simply accepting whatever is here. Not saying that I love this thing in front of me, but saying I'm willing to tolerate it. I'm willing to accept that it's here. And if it's here, there's something here to learn from. And the more that we can do that, the more we raise the entire vibration on our planet. Because this is going from intolerance to literally being intolerance, being tolerant, going from intolerance now to the gift of understanding, because now we can tolerate why everybody arrived at that decision. I can tolerate my ex-husband's erratic driving because he had a journey to go through. I can tolerate this friend that sat in a jail cell after erratic driving because I can accept the humanness of his nature. I can tolerate that I have to go through the rest of this world without my dad and without my child because I understand that it's not without them. They are here everywhere in every moment. It's just been my limited perspective that says it's without when I can't see it. When I touch my heart, when I access my breath, when I come in contact with my human vessel, my temple, there I am always eternally connected with the beloved in every single way it has anthropomorphized throughout time and space. And this is the transmission that I wanted to send to you today, is learning to be the youthful folly, learning to be patient, learning to trust in the uncertainty, that it was part of this curriculum for us to experience the uncertainty, because this is how we learn to trust. And at some point, our inner guide is going to come out and say, do you trust me? And if you can say yes, and if you can surrender and lean in, there is a quantum leap from understanding to forgiveness, from the gift state to the divine essence, the Siddhic frequency. And it's all through the embodiment from our heart of accepting all that is. I love you. Thank you for letting me share. Thank you for accepting me. And thank you for creating this portal of unconditional love where we may accept one another throughout all of our shortcomings and all the ways that this gene may show up today or this week or some point in our lives. This is my attractor field. So it doesn't have to always come through me. It's attracted into my field. And this is what we learn about this hologenetic profile, this holographic universe, is everything is projected out of us that we're learning inside of here. I send you love, I send you peace, and I finish with the mudra of the feminine holding the masculine, joining the thumbs to touch in divine union at our womb space, and finishing with a deep breath in and out. Namaste.